be a sponge, and then bring the juice.
By focusing on your improvement, by focusing on your progress, and eliminating any fixed mindset that you may have and acts of perfectionism, then you encourage your own mastery.
On some level, we do what we want to do 24 hours a day. Now, sometimes it may not seem like that, but if I'm choosing to work instead of sleep, what I'm actually saying is keeping my job is more important than sleeping.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of getting beat. What can I do to get over this hump? So mentally, that's when I kind of put that forefront, like, hey, it's either all or nothing.
I like to put failure in quotations because I don't believe that failure is true failure if you're looking at it with the right mindset.
The truth is, the journey to greatness is hard. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus, and every day you have to decide what you value, what you want to pursue, and what you want to achieve. And if you dig deep enough, if you push hard enough, we all have what it takes to be great. Welcome to the Edge of Greatness.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Charles Schultz, and today I'm joined by Haley Colwell, former collegiate softball player, now high school coach, as well as strength and conditioning coordinator at El Campo High School in Texas. Haley, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So rumor has it during your playing days, your pregame ritual was jamming out. So what I want to know is what was your go-to jam?
So me and my dad used to travel to softball tournaments all the time together, and our go-to music was obviously classic rock, like some Billy Squier, AC/DC, just like all of that. Like I love classic rock, all of it. Love that's kind of my walk-up song was like a Leonard Skinner song. So yeah, okay. It was good time.
So that was more of a homage to your dad then and the times that you guys spent together?
Oh yeah, awesome. For sure. Like that's how I could like get me pumped up and going.
So how much of an impact did your father have on your playing career then?
So my dad coached me, it was actually a pretty funny story because my dad coached me when I was T-ball, and you actually had to be 5 to play. But since my dad was the coach, I started playing T-ball at 4 years old. So he coached me all the way up until I left for college.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah.
Besides my high school coaches. Yeah. Well, right. Like select ball. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So he pretty much coached every sport, was a huge influence on me.
Love it. Love it. So I was looking through some of your Twitter stuff and following along with what you do. And so what I was wondering is when I was looking through there, I saw a really neat quote. It said, good coaches know their stuff. Great coaches know their staff. So I want to know, how do you go about getting to know your staff?
So it's actually here at my new school district, I've tried to build relationships with my coaching staff as a young strength and conditioning coordinator. This is my first year as a strength and conditioning coordinator. I've been trying to really focus on what I thought that I needed as a young head coach, like at my previous districts, and what I wanted to see from a leader. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, I just make sure that I'm getting to know my coaching staff in the summer and trying to build that relationship with them. Like it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. Like, hey, let's go grab lunch, like let's do this and this. That way they can understand that like I'm trying to be personal. I'm trying to get to know you, at the same time, I'm trying to understand your coaching style. How are we going to approach conflicts if we need to, like what does that dynamic look like? So as I'm trying to get to know my coaching staff and, former, not former, but current head coaching staff that I work with, just what are those situations like? How do you want this dynamic to work? And then as a head coach, what do I need from, a person that would be in my shoes from a strength and conditioning standpoint? So that looks like making sure that I'm talking with them about injuries, if they don't like, what I'm planning in the weight room, like, hey, are your kids sore? Just constant communication, that's that's what that relationship looks like for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's really important about getting to know them outside of the sport for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is oftentimes difficult because as head coaches, we're just constantly on the go. And a lot of our other assistant coaches, like I know one of my assistant coaches is at the middle school right now. So I hardly ever get to see her. And so I had to like go out of my way to build that relationship with her, and then my other assistant coach, he's a football coach. So I just now got him in the spring. So it's been pretty difficult to, try and navigate like building those relationships, but we're doing a great job at it.
Good. Awesome. So what does the term servant leadership mean to you?
So servant leadership means to me that you are going out of your way to serve others. Like it's not about you're being selfless. That's how I was always raised, to have servant leadership. And I actually heard it the first time at my school district in Whitesboro. I worked for Coach Gill, and he really instilled that into me. Like, you must, like, as a coach, it's not about you. It's, servant leadership. Like, you have to be, you serve others. That's part of being an educator. Like, it's not about you. It's about, like making an impact on the future generations.
No, I absolutely agree with that, because, when you look at what we have as far as coaches being about wins, you lose your team and it becomes less, I guess, about development of these kids. Cause that's the thing. We want these kids to grow and develop. So I see too often though, with the athletes that I work with personally and the teams that they're currently on, their coaches don't have that mindset. So how do we help others become better servant leaders?
I think, and it was instilled in me in the college realm too, is like, you have to, that's when I really like started linking it together, because in college it was like, okay, why are we going in the community? Why are we doing these things? And at the time, as a college ball player, like, I didn't really link it together. I was just like, okay, coach wants us to go do community service. He wants us to go read books to kids, so like, I didn't really get it at the time, but as I grew in my profession, I was like, oh, wait, like, I get it now. This is what they're trying to do, is like help mold us into being servant leaders and giving back into the communities that helped grow us. So, I mean, as a young coach, I didn't really figure that out until, my second year into coaching. I was like, okay, we need to get the community involved somehow. And so looking back, I really appreciated, my college coaches doing that.
So what kind of things are you doing now to help get your team involved with the community?
So I really like to host Teacher Appreciation Night. I know that's a common one here in Texas that we like to do. So with Teacher Appreciation Night, I say, okay, girls, you have one teacher that really sticks out to you, has been a mentor or huge influence in your life, and it can't be a coach. It has to be a just teacher only. And so what they do is they ask their teacher, hey, like, I really appreciate it if you'd come to the game. Like, we're acknowledging, teachers, teacher staff night, and they'll write a card, they'll give it to them. They'll literally like invite them to the game. Hey, I'd really appreciate it. They'll walk out on the field with them. So that's what teacher appreciation looks like. And then another one that I do is Little Lady Cat night. Little Lady Cat, Little Lady Bird, whatever your school mascot is, you can interchange that with, whatever the mascot is. So here it'd be Lady Bird night, and I send out a flyer to the youth or rec teams in the area. And so the recreation, so you have to build, so before that, you have to build that relationship with the rec league. So you have to reach out to that person too, to be like, hey, like, Fields, can I come speak, or doing camps or whatnot. So once you have that relationship built with that person, then you can get the flyer out there and have them basically shoot it out to all their teams. So when that happens, they invite all of their Little League players out to our field. We'll announce them. It's just like a fun way to get like those younger little kids involved, because they're all about, being with these varsity and like high school girls, JV girls. So that's a couple of things. And then in the past, I've had small town festivals, or like we used to have a peanut festival back at home, and I'd volunteer the girls to work, like just represent, the softball program, they would work it, and that way like we would get recognition, and like people outside the community, like in the community, would say, hey, those Whitesboro girls, I'm going to go support them, what I'm saying? And so that's what we did at the former district that I was at.
That's very
So
cool.
it's actually a really cool experience. Yeah. And then another thing is just like being at other school events. So if you can go support other programs, other academic UIL events, like I just tell my girls, hey, if you want people at your games, you have to go support them. So that's one of the main things that I like.
Yeah, and I love the idea of getting involved in the community and helping give back, because you're going to, one, gain support from that, but two, it really speaks to the amount of work that goes into being a coach that I don't think a lot of people really understand or appreciate. How would you help a person who's becoming a new coach, who thinks they've got it figured out, but maybe doesn't quite understand what all it entails? Because I keep hearing all these stories about different things that you have to do to help build a program, but I don't think a lot of people really truly appreciate just how much time you give to these girls to help them develop and grow off the field.
Yeah, so I've been at 3 districts now where I've had to be involved in building the program. And it's tough. It's definitely tough. There has to be a vision to what you're wanting to create. And with that, it comes experiences and situations. So you kind of, as a young coach, you learn from what you like and what you didn't like, and you kind of just throw it all together, and it's like, okay, what can we do this year? So as a young coach, I would say just make sure that you have a vision, and don't be afraid to reach out to other mentors, other successful coaches, because if there's someone out there that is doing a really great job, that's a softball coach in the state of Texas, or, in the US, I'm probably going to reach out to them as a high school coach and be like, hey, what do you think about this? So just don't be afraid to phone call, email, all those things. Because I know that as a young coach, it can get a little overwhelming. But as long as you have like mentors and people that you trust in your corner to give you, real life advice or experiences, like, hey, this is it. This is the idea that I have. What do you think about this? As long as it's like constructive criticism and feedback, like with their own experiences that they give you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And over my career, I've found that the coaching community is a really tight knit fraternity that wants to help. So like asking them isn't a bad thing. It's something that they are looking to give more to the game. And by giving it to another coach, it's not competition. It's helping grow the game that they love and that they're serving. So,
right. And I think another thing is like just assessing the program needs. So that is another one, just like, where are they at? What have they done? What do we need to do? And then also I really like to get the kids' input on some of the things that they've had done, that I kind of want to tweak. And then we just go from there.
So I'm glad you said the kids' input, because I'm curious here. So you often hear the term culture thrown around right now. It's a big buzzword. People are trying to build cultures. But what I want to know is, how do you utilize your leadership on the team to help build your culture?
So I think as a young coach, I am able to relate to the girls a little bit more. As a former college athlete, like I know what they're trying to accomplish as a young high school student. Whether that's, ACT, SAT, all these other like life stressors that have going on. I'm not too far removed from the game that I still like to keep myself in the loop. So I really like to talk with them and get to know them, obviously, as a player. So as building the culture, I feel like you said, culture gets thrown around a lot. So just getting to know the kids, getting to know the expectations, and then just owning who you are and what you bring to the district that you're at, to that program. Like, does that make sense? Like, you're pretty much your own brand.
I got you.
It's like you're branding yourself, you're having that kid's input, all those types of things.
What types of things do you have your kids give you input on? What do they have say in?
So the hashtags, like the words we did at the beginning of the year when I went to ABCA, I really liked Brian Kane's speech over, culture. Like he's just awesome. Like he has tons of energy. And so I really I really like the fact of like his 2 words. We picked 2 words at the beginning of the year, and that's kind of like what we based our season off of. So the 2 words were selflessness and grit. And so like every day that they walk into the field, like that's who we are. That's who we are as a program. We're selfless and we're very gritty. Like we'll get after it. So having their input and like owning like, okay, as a program, 2022 season, that's the 2 words that we're going to define ourselves by.
I like that. And then they buy into it more, I'm assuming, because it's their words. It's not your words. So.
Yeah, right.
So what I'm curious is now is obviously you've played for a long time. You've now coached for several years, and you hear all these stories about coaches who like to yell at practice, who like to make their players run, to like force them to be perfect. What does that make you think when you hear things like that?
It definitely has some flashbacks to me in college. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, I definitely think that there's a time and place, not really like to yell, to be more stern with your voice. There's a time and place for that. And so I've never really been a coach that just like blatantly yells, because as a player, I was just like very walking on eggshells if the coach had to yell. So I learned from my own personal experience. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where I'm very stern with my athletes, but they have to do something multiple times in order for me to get that way. And then also I really like to just pull the player aside, really break down what happened. If it was an error, then it was an error. We'll talk about it and then we'll talk through it. You know what I'm saying? And so like there was a saying one day that I heard a speaker say, like, raising the volume seldom helps. And so that was a real like light bulb to me. And and a couple of years back in my first year of coaching, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so true. Like raising the volume seldom helps, as long as you just talk personable in a calm voice, explain it. That's my coaching style.
Yeah. And I definitely agree. I think you have to hold kids accountable and you have to be hard on them at times. That's important. But I'm the type of coach too, like I'm not a yeller. If my voice gets raised, it's either to get your attention or because you're not listening, which is then to get your attention. And then I'm going to talk to you, Yeah. And I found that by doing that, I get a much better response, because when I do raise my voice, they know, oh God, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
But what I want to know then is, how is it that you go about addressing mistakes in a practice setting if you're not yelling? Because I think that a lot of coaches think that they have to yell to get their point across. What are some other tactics that you use to help coach kids without yelling?
So, one of the things I really like to do is make practice like a safe haven. Like it's okay to make errors. Like now is not the time to be perfect. Like it's okay. Like if you make an error or you bobble the ball, my girls already know that, you better be asking for a next one, because that's the expectation level. Like I'm okay with making errors, like you drop that ball. Okay, coach, like I got this, next rep, like just flush it, next rep, let's go. And so I talked, with my team this year about just, the confidence level, and, it's okay to have bad days at practice, just get back up, like flush it and go to the next rep. Cause that's essentially that's what you have to do in the game as well. So
I love the idea of a safe haven, because I think that there's so much perfection seeking in this world. We are constantly trying to do it perfect or do it the right way. Because we always see the final product of what everyone else is doing, they don't see the mistakes that happen to get to there. So how do we help young kids get away from maybe some of the perfectionism that they kind of lean into? Because I see it all the time that they don't even try sometimes because they're afraid of the failure of what might happen, because they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I feel like some kids are just like, oh, like I'm not the best, what's the point? And then it's like they don't hustle, or, like they don't give their, max effort. And so I think that as a coach, you kind of have to feed to the kids' ego sometimes, and just constantly like have positive like reinforcement, like, hey, it's okay, get back out there, And so like, I think as coaches, if we take a little bit of the negativity away, then in turn, the players might feel a little looser, they might feel better. And so I'm constantly like self-conscious of what I say at practice. Like I really try hard. If I do have a teaching situation where it's like, hey, You didn't tag up last night at the game. Make sure that you get your body set, because we can't have that like going into district, etc. So it's more of a teaching moment for me. And if I'm able to discuss that like one-on-one in a calm voice rather than yelling or whatever, then I think that the players have a lot of respect and confidence in that as well, so they just play looser. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree that when there's the lack of, they don't fear the failure, they play more free and to the level of their abilities.
Yeah.
So how do you get kids to take more risks? What's something that you utilize to help them take more risks? And this could be either on the field or in the weight room, because one of the things for me is helping kids when they lift do something they're uncomfortable with. And so I'm sure coaches out there are dealing with this, where they see a potential in a kid and they think that they can achieve something special, but they're afraid to take the risk. So what are some tactics that you use to help them understand that a risk is not a bad thing?
So here now at this district, the girls have never really had too much involvement in the weight room. So I really had to change the mindset or the idea that like the weight room is just for boys or it's just for boys athletics. So I take that and be like, hey, like girls have muscles too. Like we can still get after it. It's injury prevention. It's all these things. We're going to hit the ball harder. We're going to run faster. And so as long as you speak about those in positive light situations, that's going to create buy-in too. So from a strength and conditioning standpoint, it was very easy for me just to get out there this summer and like teach them like, hey, this is why we do things. This is why we're doing this. This is why we're squatting this. And this is why. So you have to explain the why behind it, especially if they don't, if they haven't had a good experience with that workout or skill movement, or if they have had injuries to it. That's another thing. If they, I know some of our kids here have low back deadlift, like it strains it a little bit. So we've had to make modifications to that. But just getting them like more familiar with the weight room and like why we do things.
How do you help the female culture specifically get over the idea that the weight room makes you bulky?
That's a question. It's a good question. I think that, you hear it all the time, and especially in, high school, like it's like, oh, I don't want to get bulky, but it's like, I think as long as we continue to, and we've made strides in gains, like over the last couple of years, we really have. And so it's just a fun time to be a part of, athletics right now, especially in the high school setting with the weight rooms and how girls athletics is progressing in the weight room. It's like you have full-time strength coaches. Like I love that. And so it's kind of like a catalyst mode. Once one district does it here, it's like boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, that school district's lifting weights. Why aren't we doing this? You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it's just like a catalyst. And so it's been a fun way to, get the girls like competing also in the weight room,
How important do you think competition is as a school, as a program, across the board within an organization?
I think that competition is super important because at the end of the day, the games are competition. So if you can create, like in my practices, I try and create like a more chaotic practice plan so that when we get in the game, it really is slowed down a little bit. So I try and create like a fast pace practice plan. Like we're on a minute punch time clock. Like, okay, we have, 7 minutes to get this drill done. You better be hustling and moving. So when they get to the real live stuff, it slows the game down a little bit. They're able to breathe and make that clean play.
I got you. That makes sense. What about comparison? Because I've been having some conversations lately, and we actually went pretty deep on this idea, but I'm curious how you handle, especially with female athletes. I don't know why, but I feel like they have a tendency to really fall into the comparison game a lot, at least the ones that I work with. I don't want to pigeonhole all female athletes, but I feel like they have a tendency to compare themselves and it leads to them feeling like maybe they can't do something as good as someone else. So how do we help people utilize comparison in a healthy way?
I think that it also deals with buying into like who we are. As long as you have like this is who we are, this is what we're good at. Focus on the things that we're good at. Don't focus on the negative things that we're good at. Because once you get into that negative mindset and start comparing, and I know like even I do it as a young coach, it's like, oh my gosh, like this program's doing that. Why am I not doing that? Whatnot. But as long as you continue as a coach to speak light into those players, light in life, and like be a positive aspect, I think it'll just blow up. Like it'll really be, good. And, you're just keep in mind your players are going to have good and bad days. But as long as you just continue to do that, I mean, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think we all fall into moments of comparison. That's why I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think that utilizing it the right way. I think that it has its place.
Yeah, I think that it definitely has, I'll throw, if one player is struggling like in practice, I'll throw a player out there and, have a little competition, like maybe a lot of fire under, but like, hey, here you go. Like, this is what you're competing with. And I've had to have, tough conversations with kids like that. Like, well, it's between you and you. That's just the real reality of it. Who's ever stepping up, and, if someone gets in a slump, then it's like, but those kids know, it's constant competition, especially at the varsity level.
Yeah. How much time of your time with your girls is spent on things outside of skill development in softball?
So since this is my first year at this district, I'm going to be honest, like we haven't done much stuff as much as I'd like to do in the past. So in the past at my previous districts, the girls just played other sports together. So it was constant, team bonding, at the smaller districts, they're just constantly together. So you didn't really have to put too much of an emphasis on team bonding and whatnot. Now in the spring here at this district, a lot of these kids are just softball specific. So yeah, which is unique to me. So I've tried to put them in situations, but this is a growing learning curve for me. So does that make sense? Like, yeah. I have an idea about what I want to do, but I'm still growing in that aspect.
So what are some of those things that you would like to do?
Team dinners, or like we do that. And so the girls have church on Wednesday nights, and team dinners are previously in my past district have been on Wednesday nights. So we're trying to find out like a happy medium. So maybe we'll start that on a different night in the next few weeks. And then, the girls typically just hang out with each other outside of it. Another thing that I would like to do in the future is like go to like a college game in the fall, like a little trip, like team bonding, like a fall ball game.
Okay. So you guys get to play fall ball down there?
No, like I meant like, we do, but it's more of I can't coach it.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So but I'm saying like take all my girls, load them up, put them in a bus, and go to like a college ball game. So like U of H or like Texas A&M, like one of those, just to like get a fun team outing and like go over some stuff, and that would just be fun.
It would be. When I was coaching baseball, my head coach we took spring trips, and every spring we went to a different city that was near a college campus. And one of the things we like to do is go to watch them practice and then go watch a game so they could experience what it was like to play at that level, to see a game at that level. And I think that there's a lot of value in that, and experiencing that and seeing, is that really what I want to do? Is that who I want to become? Right. And those type, and plus it's fun. You get to see high level athletics. So,
I've had it planned in the past, but it just for whatever reason didn't work out. So
well, it's been a tough couple of years for the sports, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So one of the things as we wind down here a little bit, I want to dig into a little bit of something with your past, and telling me a little bit about what's a moment in your coaching career where when you look back on it, you look at it and go, man, if I was in that situation with what I know now, I would do it different. Cause I'm sure all the coaches listening have had tough moments in their career that they wish somebody would have told them about before they became a head coach, and they go, oh gosh, I'm knee deep in this stuff. So what's something that was a challenging moment for you that, you know, you look back on and you go, oh man, I would have handled that differently today?
I mean, it's hard to pick one scenario because I feel like I'm learning something, you know, during softball season. It's like, oh my gosh, it's something every single day. Man, that's a tough one. I think maybe just being more prepared. I mean, like, I know that I'm a super organized person, but there's always room for improvement on the prepared part, and being able to, if a drill doesn't work, just being able to just roll on the fly. Like, I'm pretty good about just rolling on the fly. I think another thing that I would like to get better at, you know, as I continue to grow, is being okay with not feeling like I just have to do everything on my own. Like, from like on my assistant coaches, like, give them a task and be okay with them not running it the right way, you know, and just like setting the expectation, like, hey, this is how I want you to run it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then feel free to fix it on the fly. Because I am basically, you know, from a young age, I've always like had things done my way, and, you know, like, I've kind of just been on my own in the coaching world, because I used to get my assistant coach like later because of basketball, and so like I'm so used to just doing everything on my own. And then now it's like, in the past couple of years, I've been able to trust my assistants to go run a drill. So I think like having quality assistant is huge. So those are just a couple things.
Yeah, no, I love that answer, because I agree. I think that oftentimes, especially new head coaches, they want to do it all. And that just is, it's too much. It's too much. And
yeah.
So how hard, or how did you decide when it's the right time to let go of the wheel a little bit?
I think that I decided that about 2 years ago, when I kind of clicked with my assistant coaches, and I basically said like, hey, we're a unit, we got to work together. And I was okay with them disagreeing with me on certain standpoints, you know. And so like, or, you know, my last year I had a assistant coach that was previously a head coach, and we worked really well together because he had some skin in the game, like a little bit. And so like, he knew what the head coach expectation was. And so we were able to just work very well together. And, you know, my other assistant coach had been a head coach before. And then now I have 2 assistant coaches that haven't been a head coach. And so it's been pretty easy for me to designate, like, this is your duties, this is your duties. But it's taking me, you know, 6 years to get here to that point. And each year I feel like I get better at, you know, designating like those duties, and being kind of clear and concise, and just open to what they want to do also.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. And it speaks to the fact that you've talked about learning something new every season. I heard you say that when I asked you about what you learned from the past, and you're like, well, I'm always learning. And I think that's a key for success long-term, is that growth mindset. So what are some of the things that you that you do on a regular basis to help improve your skill as either a coach or a leader, or in those aspects?
I really like to call my mentors and just bounce ideas off of them, or give them certain situations that I'm, you know, dealing with, or, you know, just to talk and hang out, see what they're dealing with. Because I can learn a lot from, you know, my mentors on what's going on at their districts, and, you know, like, hey, teach me something today. What's going on over there, you know? So I really like to just call my mentors, stay in touch with my mentors. Definitely like to get advice from my AD and, you know, coordinators, to see what they think about certain situations, because my way is not always the right way, or, you know, the wrong way necessarily. So I really like to get different perspectives on that. And so I try and keep an open mindset on that. Yeah. And then also I really like Twitter. Like, obviously I love Twitter, and I feel like every time you get on Twitter, you're like seeing something that is very like thought provoking, and it just makes me think like a little bit outside the box.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Twitter guy myself. I definitely spend more time there than any other social platforms. I feel like you can curate it to what you want to learn a little bit easier, and it's a little more about
Oh, yeah.
knowledge instead of just
Yes.
fun pictures. So
Right. Yes, I agree.
so as we wind down here, what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity to share where my listeners can find you. If maybe a coach wants to connect, how they can go about doing that. Because obviously, as we're doing this, we're all trying to help grow a community. We're all trying to get better. We're all trying to reach for greatness. So how can they get a hold of you and see what you're doing?
My Twitter handle is the Coach Colwell. You can just shoot me a DM, follow, and we can go from there. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. I will make sure I put that in the show notes. Haley, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars, fall flat on your face, but remember, whenever we fall, always get up.
Thank you for joining us today on the Edge of Greatness podcast. If you haven't yet, please take a minute now to subscribe and review our show. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the key components of greatness. The path to greatness is never linear, so remember to keep pursuing greatness no matter what. Keep stretching your abilities, reach for the stars, and fall flat on your face. But remember, no matter what happens, whenever we fall, always get up. Until next time, I'm Charles Schultz, and this was the Edge of Greatness podcast.